This is another episode of the Critical Introvert Show. I'm your host, Senor Filth, with Benevolent Asshole, and we have Nate Kapnicky. So the reason I wanted to do this episode was there's been a kind of common theme that we've been bringing up the last couple episodes is that we've been noticing like a weird trend or a similarity between like how people are acting and how just cults kind of form and how they become. And I thought Nate would be kind of an interesting guy to bring on to the show to talk about this topic. And a couple weeks ago, I was on vacation and I stumbled upon a pamphlet about just how cults work and the mind state that people have to be in to join one. And it kind of felt like a really cool opportunity to just have a whole discussion on the similarities between what's going on and how cults work and all that kind of stuff. So so Nate, I guess if I know I asked you this already, but what like just vague stuff do you kind of just generally know about cults and how they work?
Well, you know, like I was saying, I'm definitely not the expert. I don't have the expertise on cults per se, but I definitely have studied enough of the philosophy, the psychology, and the dangers of cults in order to, be able to protect myself and to help others protect themselves, whether they're joining or whether they know someone that's in one, or whether they see them and just want to understand how they work. It's so important that we educate ourselves with an open mind on cults, because it's really easy to just throw people in a box and think that we, just because we have a little bit of knowledge, that this means like, oh, these people are horrible, awful people because you're like, oh, I found out they're in a cult, or I believe they're in a cult, but I don't really know too much about cults. And so it becomes very dangerous to know what the like the behaviors of a cult are. And sorry, I'm hearing like a whole bunch of stuff on my headphones. I got a little sidetracked there, but yeah, like, okay, so the term cult is very ambiguous because everybody has their definition of what a cult is. But what's so important about studying a cult is you really do have to understand morality. You have to understand conscience, the difference between right and wrong behavior. Does a behavior cause harm? And therefore it's a wrong if it does. Okay, well, if it doesn't cause harm, it's a right. It's very simple.
Yeah.
But then also to know what free will is, being able to choose to a right action over a wrong action, to choose to do no harm versus do harm to someone else, or initiate harm, right? So that's really important that we keep that in mind while we're studying cults. And a lot of these experts, these some experts out there who speak on cults, you never hear them speak about that. So it's just a bunch of rhetorical rhetoric that really doesn't amount to anything other than like pointing the finger and saying, those are the bad guys.
Yeah.
And but the thing is if you use this simple method of applying morality and free will to cults, then you start to realize like, oh, I can actually judge what, I can judge a cult. I can judge someone's behavior or the cult's behavior, the overall behavior,
Mhm.
because I understand the difference between right and wrong behavior. So, and the other part that's really important to that is understanding free will, because free will is about, like I said, it's about choosing right action over wrong action. And that means you have responsibility for your actions. Therefore, when you look at these cults, you realize that the very reason that people even are, that what makes a cult is the belief in authority, where you believe that you can give your responsibility over to a leader, a cult leader.
Mhm.
And that is completely an illusion, because you can't give somebody your responsibility. They already have their own responsibility. You can't put your responsibility on someone else's lap. It doesn't work that way. And that's where so many people's imagination is so backwards, because they're imagining something that isn't true in nature. You can't magically give your responsibility over to somebody else, but that's what creates cults. And it's a lot of self-hatred that's built in to a person to even want to join a cult, because they need purpose. They're not happy with their identity, or they're having an identity crisis, and so they're an easy target for cults. They are they are ripe to be part of a cult, and that is really, really vital that we understand that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've mentioned a couple times that, like, when I talk to like the SJW types, or just the COVID freak types, I get a vibe that, like, they feel somewhat lost, like they don't know what to do with themselves. And even when I was younger, I've always been kind of like my same kind of, I was into the dorky things. I never really followed much, like, pop culture. And when I talk to like kids nowadays that, like, you know that were in the age of like when I was starting to get into like music and art and stuff like that, they seem like they're sort of just passing by. They're not really into anything particular. And I think a lot of that has to do with why they sort of like get into activism or some kind of thing. It feels like it's like a hobby or something. Like, it's weird to explain, but
Right. They want to be part of that.
Mhm.
They want to be part of something. They want to be part of the, there's this underdog condition that
Mhm.
people are in. And it's like, we want to be part of we want to, like, we don't care whether the minority is wrong or right. We just want to be part of the underdog team,
Yeah.
because it's like, it's a negative attracts negative,
Mhm.
and it's very easy to fall into that mindset.
Mm.
I think it's also counterintuitive the way that they try to, I guess, what's the right word? The how to deal with, I guess, the whenever somebody joins like a cult, it's always in disguise as something else, or we're trying to get rid of like racism. So
Yeah.
their their answer is always very counterintuitive. For
Mhm.
example, the one video, I don't know what's the name of the one, I think the Vice video that you sent us
Right, the camp, yeah.
is very telling, because the camp, I don't know if you watched it too, Nate, but it is very counterintuitive, because it has all these people and they're trying to train them how to not be racist, but at the
Yeah.
same time they don't have, like, they talk about how they don't have any horseback riding, they don't have any sports, they don't have any activities. They have all these stupid, their own sort of like made up activities where they're just talking to each other. And that I guess we're gonna watch that later on, right? Because I think that's gonna like
We
bring up
could if
more.
there's time, yeah.
Yeah, I think like some of there's like ideas, things that I want to say about certain things about that video, but to me, it's very counterintuitive, because it's doing the opposite of what you should do. Because
Mhm.
the reason why a lot of these kids are feeling useless is because they're not because you need to participate with each other. And like in sports, like if they're doing horseback riding, playing baseball, or like any kind of like sport or activity where they can see, oh, so and so Jeff is really good at running, or he's really good at batting, or they're really good. Like you start building like a relationship with each other.
Mhm.
You start building relationship. You start building like trust with each other, and you're not even thinking about the color of their skin. You're thinking about
Mhm.
their abilities as a person. You start respecting each other because, oh wow, this person can throw a ball like really fast, or like I admire that person. Like, so you start appreciating and admiring each other
Mhm.
for each other's strengths, and you try and you work as a team instead of like doing the things that like
Yeah,
you have to
yeah,
watch the video, but like that video like brought up a lot of things. Like, well, no wonder like a lot of these people like feel like they have no hope because like they're doing the opposite of what they're supposed to be doing. Like, no, you should be having fun
yeah.
with each other. Like, you shouldn't even be thinking about, oh, that person's white or that person's black. Just like interact with each other and have fun. And I think the problem is gonna like solve itself.
How much, I guess, for both of you guys, like how much of this? Because when I saw that video, when I see like, I've also seen like, do you guys know who like Beverly D'Angelo is? Like
Mm.
I
the
think so.
she's like one of those critical race theory pusher people, but
oh no, never mind. It's like somebody else.
or maybe I've got her name wrong. But anyways,
Yeah.
I get like this huge vibe of like just projection in general. Because if you hear like her speak about it, like she sounds incredibly bigoted, and yeah, and it's like how much of this is just projection, and do you guys think? Because yeah, I get like huge vibes when I'm talking to people about like you know racism issues. Like they themselves sound super racist, and I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm trying to follow along with what you're asking, but yeah, I do see this. Yeah, there is a backwards type of thing going on here where, someone who is someone who's white sticking up for black people will
Hmm.
go up to a black person and say you're racist,
Yeah.
just for them like sharing their opposed view.
Mhm.
And it's so bizarre. So it's just a lot of mind control is really what it is. And it's just people are so confused and so divided within, and they just project that confusion and division out
Mhm.
on the people. And it's just and it has to be talked about. I mean, that's why I'm glad that we can
Yeah.
have these types of conversations, because I mean, and there really needs, like on my show, I don't know that I'll ever bring somebody on uh who is gonna um have like that opposed view without logic,
Hmm.
because I don't want to, I don't have time to argue with people.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like these types of people need to be exposed to show like, yeah, they can't even argue because they have no backbone, they have no logic, they have no reasoning. They just want their feelings and opinions to be worth more than knowledge and more than facts. And it's like, okay, well, we can never have a real roundtable discussion because you're too clouded in your ego and pride to actually have any kind of real dialogue. So
Yeah. Hmm.
I'm not, I know I'm not really answering your question.
No, that's
But
good.
I guess I didn't really completely understand it.
Well, like another thing from the video that I want to bring up, that because I'm not sure if we're gonna watch it, is that even though it's so backwards, there's other things that I learned from that video too. Was that there is a part in the middle of the video where they're giving like sets. They're talking about, or they have like it's like some black kids talking about what it is that's bugging them, and then one of the black kid mentions like, well, it's because I feel that I have to act a certain way because I'm black and this and that, and like I can't be sensitive because I'm black. And it's funny because they don't. I'm almost certain that even though I'm sure they're trying to paint that, oh, okay, it's because like the black people, I mean the white people are telling you like you have to act a certain way. I can assure you that like I mean at least like the way that I was raised, there's like more racism coming from like my own race.
Hmm.
So it seemed to me that there's like another black kid telling him, oh, you have to act this way. It's like,
Yeah.
or you have to, if you're gonna be black, you have to act this way. And that's like one of those things that it doesn't matter what race it is. Like your race just doesn't matter.
Hmm.
And that's why like saying that you have to act like a certain way because you're black, that's just like the opposite of
Yeah.
of what they're trying to do. And this doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
So I think that's all I wanted to say about that.
Well, what I I mean, I wasn't able to completely follow along in that video that you sent, but I gave it a watch, and some of the big, dark, cult like techniques that are out there, that I noticed in that video was, one is isolation. You're isolating all
Mhm.
these kids from the outside
Yeah.
world. And isolation is, it's really about, keeping, it's a physical separation from the rest of the community,
Mhm.
from the rest of the people. And, that's really what makes a cult a cult.
Yeah.
But obviously, like I said, there's degrees. There's cults that are not evil, and then there's cults that are very evil. But it's like what happens is, like, even though there's like a whole bunch of children who are all different races and different different cultures or whatever, the thing is like they are what they're promoting, and what I could tell, and it was a very low level, but it is creating an us versus them mentality,
Hmm.
because it's like, oh, you're getting them, like one of the other techniques is conformity,
Hmm.
and it's about like, your own individuality is not really tolerated. It's like, what we're teaching you is how to be. We're stripping you away from, how you were, and we're making you into, this new type of person, this new thinker. And,
Yeah.
like, that can be a good thing or a bad thing, but, in the way that I was seeing it in that video is, they're not promoting, they're not trying to help those children understand anything
Yeah.
to do with morality, at all. They're far from that. They're just caught up in a whole bunch of nonsense about like, sex and color, but never getting to like, are you a good person and treating
Hmm.
people with respect, and
Mhm.
learning how to have logical conversations, and learning how to not push your harm on someone just because you disagree with them.
Yeah.
They're not having
Mhm.
conversations like that, so they're not enlightened. They're not trying to enlighten the children. They're just trying to confuse them further and further.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's way worse in other cults, but it is definitely part of the cult mentality. And it's the other thing I realize is that they're pushing these, like, there's the indoctrination through repetition, so they're like,
Mhm.
pushing them through like drills, and getting them to do chants and phrases, and
Yeah.
other
I
types
saw
of
that. Yeah.
behaviors, and like that's another cult technique,
Yeah. When I
So,
was seeing that, like, there's a part when they're like singing some chant, and I was just, like, it seems like it looks like people are like, when I was in church, because I'm Catholic, like, it felt like they were just doing a prayer, like a united prayer, and it just really weirded me out. But
Yeah, I know the feeling.
You know, the other thing too, like really quick before I forget, was that
mhm,
when they were asking the kids too, like what they thought the camp was going to be about, it's also very misleading because they were told that it had to do something with like leadership. I don't know if you guys like
yeah.
pay attention to that. It's like they're like, yeah, well, they told us like it had like something to do with leadership, and like I just wanted to like uh get into that, and because I was gonna get like school credit, and it seemed like a
Mhm,
good idea, and my mom told me to do it, and so like the parent, like once again, like Nate said too, is like they're isolated, so they think
mhm.
the parents think that they're sending them to a camp that has to do with leadership skills, but it's like on the contrary, it's like something else. It's like they're just getting
Re-education
a
camp.
Yeah, yeah.
re-education camp for like these POS like adults. I don't
Right.
know, man.
Uh, I guess let's just start going into the pamphlet.
Okay.
It's titled "Cults and Brainwashing" by Dr. Clyde Naramore. I've never heard of this guy, and I've even tried searching who he is. I couldn't really find that much about him. Um, but obviously, he comes from some Christian foundation, and um, I understand like the red flags of like this guy could be just selling his own cult, and I kind of there's something about that like I kind of liked about it. It's sort of like when you hear about like ex-cons giving tips to like cops about like what to look for as far as fraud and stuff like that. So that's kind of the way I kind of looked at it when I saw that
Hmm.
this guy was super Christian. I don't know if you guys agree or not, but that's what kind of
Well,
like
And-
made me want to read it even more.
Mhm.
just to let you know, I only read like 10 or 13 pages, I believe.
That's cool.
So I can see the red flags in the beginning, but
Mhm,
I hate to say like, that I fully understand this guy because I didn't read the rest of the book. But
mhm, mhm.
I just want to put it out there on the record, like, I'm definitely not a a Bible thumper. I'm not, somebody who hates on anyone who reads the Bible. I'm not against any kind of Christians or Catholics.
Yeah.
But I am very much against this, the cults that come out of these religions,
Mhm.
and that makes them, awful and cause so much devastation in this world. So
Yeah.
but I think this, from what I have read so far, and hearing these techniques, it's like, yeah, this guy definitely knows the techniques, but at the same time you can tell there's this underlying
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
way of like trying to get you to think that what he's reading is the authority.
Yeah, yeah. And that I kind of like that like I was getting that vibe when I was reading it. So it's kind of a um nice little test for myself, I guess. Let's go into this big part of it. Okay, so this is a part of why do people turn to cults? Um, he mentions this thing about, I guess we'll just go to A. It says, people are born to believe. They have to. Every person is born with a quote belief box inside. Um, they must trust, have confidence in something. Even atheists believe in what suits their fancy. I guess I'm not going to read the rest of that, but uh, I was always pretty much kind of like I don't mean it in a bad way, but like a kind of nihilistic realist person. Like I try to like be objective and just, you know, I don't feel like I need something to follow for my own soul's sake. And with this whole, since this whole COVID thing, I'm seeing this trend of people like, it's like they need some kind of guidance, whatever it is. And maybe it's a belief thing. I don't know, like, what do you guys feel about this idea of like people need to believe in something?
Well, yeah, everybody to some degree wants to find purpose.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of people just, you know, they find something where they get comfortable, and then they're like, okay, here's my so-called purpose. And it's like I said, it's about handing over. It's about saying, oh, here's my authority. Here's someone who I can give my responsibility over to, and I don't have to go any further into myself. That's the way I see it. And
Mhm.
because the truth is, like, I mean, I can't tell you how many cul-de-sacs I've got myself into. And that's a good thing, because getting yourself into cul-de-sacs, and cul-de-sacs being like places where like dead ends,
Mhm.
where like, oh, you know, I was raised Catholic for the first, 12 years of my life, didn't even know what that meant. But then I became an atheist, and then I became agnostic. And then I, started to realize, like, oh, okay, there's, like, I got into conspiracies and I got stuck there. So all these were like traps, but I
Yeah.
always figured out a way to get out of those. And, but a lot of people end up in one trap, and then they pitch their tent and stay there forever. And by pitch their tent, I mean, like, they go halfway up the mountain, and they pitch their tent and say, this is as far as I go on their journey. So it's just very it's so important that we recognize how easy it is for people to just join these movements and these cults, these religious sects,
Mhm.
and then just stay there because they're comfortable, and
Yeah.
they don't want responsibility for uh figuring out the rest, to
Mhm.
this life. So
Yeah.
that's the way I see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it worries me when I talk to people, and even if I'm making good points, like, they're still very like staunch in like their little, you know, cubby hole, to say, you know what I mean? And yeah, it just, like, I mean, don't you want to like be interesting and grow and have some depth to you? But like, I mean, especially here in LA, it's for a town that's like known to be so open minded and all that stuff. Like so many people are really closed off, and
Yeah.
like maybe it's something I've just never noticed before or something. But yeah.
Well, I mean, just like in LA, like in Native was saying, like a lot of people like just gave up and just pitched their tent somewhere in LA and just gave up.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of dark.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It sounded like more like sounded kind of funny in my head, but like it was like a
Yeah.
lot darker when I said it.
I guess let's just briefly just mention he mentioned Satan in one of these, but I'll skip that one. Uh, C and D are kind of sort of similar to what we're kind of talking about. As C is, people turn to cults also because they do not feel fulfilled, which I think is a big reason why people just stay stuck in whatever state they're in, and like there's no even like drive to grow in any way. I don't know, with not even mentally or like health wise. It's yeah.
Yeah, it's like the moral high ground. They think that they have that moral high ground, and they're
Hmm.
just so convinced that they're right and they're doing the right thing for everybody else that they've just put their flag down. It's like, this is where I'm gonna stay, and this is what I believe. With and it's a shame because it's. I mean, it just they're only looking at one aspect of the problem,
Yeah.
and
Right.
you have to at least take a look at least two angles, and it seems that they're just looking at one aspect when there's like so many aspects that you can look at.
Yeah. It sometimes it feels like someone who's like only listened to like the same song over and over and over again. even like covers of the same song, and you just like, have you heard this other song by this same artist? Like, no, I'm good. I'm good with this. You know
Yep,
what I mean?
exactly.
Yeah.
You hit the nail right on the head with that
Yeah.
one.
It's, you know, and I don't know, it's weirdly kind of isolating for people like me. Like, you know, I want to learn as much as I can, but people just are weirdly stuck with where they're at, and I don't know, it makes you feel like an outsider sometimes. And you know,
Indeed.
I guess D is similar. Finally, people turn to cults because all human beings have an innate desire to be pledged to something. Yeah, I mean, I've never felt like I needed to pledge to anything personally. But
Same.
I like the idea that like the older I get, the more I just generally learn more about myself and even things I'm wrong about. And yeah.
That's the same with me. Something that I love about myself um, is this strength to find out where I'm wrong,
Hmm.
because every time that I've found out where I'm wrong, my eyes light up and my ego hurts really bad. And I feel this growth, you
Yeah.
know, I feel that's where I feel growth, is where I find out where I'm wrong, or where I've been, duped into, some other kind of religious belief,
Hmm.
some kind of lie. And it's, to me, it's so important that we have that kind of mindset, because otherwise we stagnate, we get comfortable, and again, it's like the cul-de-sac thing. You just, how are, like, our whole life is like a labyrinth. Our whole life, we go without even like wanting to know anything about the science of ourself. Something that, see, because the problem is we've been raised to give authority over to, scientists, actual just people who, everybody kind of like, a lot of people worship as having, or the only people that can have truth, the arbiters of truth. And then you have like, you give authority over to investigators. Only investigators who have credentials can research
Hmm.
things, not you. But it's like, no, man, you didn't come here. We didn't come here to be someone else's slave. We didn't come here to have someone else be the authority over us. We came here to learn that we're sovereign human beings. We came here, and I'm not trying to sound preachy, but I mean, it makes sense, because once you realize that, you're not here to serve man, you're here to serve the creator. You're here to serve what created you, what gave you this life, what made all these things possible. We are here to find out who we truly are. And to me, that's what the purpose really is to figure that out, and to overcome the fear of letting go of the dogmatic belief in man as authority, because that's what we're raised into. We're raised into that kind of belief system. And that's why everybody is always looking to somebody else to, tell them what to do.
Yeah.
So, and that's what the cult leaders want. That's exactly what they want. They want people who are looking for an authority to look up to, and man, and those types of people are very easy targets.
Yeah.
So
I guess I skipped a couple pages. There's a section. I guess we'll just go into like cult leaders, because it's an interesting one. The characteristics of a cult leader. A is that they are often dynamic, forceful personalities with a persuasive quality. People are captivated by these qualities and frequently look no further before linking up with a cause. Yeah, I'm like, to put it in comparison with like politicians, like, do you guys know who Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is?
Yeah.
Yeah, and this isn't anything against her, you know what I mean? But like, I more look at like the fans of her. It's almost like they kind of just they idealize her in a very weird way. Like it almost feels like they don't listen to what she says. They just like the image of her, and and like I guess she does have a dynamic presentation of how she speaks, I guess, but like there's really not much there as far as like the substance that she, like the stuff that she actually says. And like I can really easily, I don't know, I can see through it, but it's weird when I just see, like, I'm still seeing people post like, oh, she's awesome stuff, and
Yeah.
Right.
Same thing with like what's his name? Andrew Yang. You
hmm
guys know who Andrew Yang is?
yeah.
Like
Mhm.
his whole thing was what was it, like $1,000 like a month? He promised like $1,000 a month to everybody, and everybody, like,
Yeah.
not everybody, but like his fans like got the bait. Oh yeah, like I'm gonna sign up for that. Like it's like this is such a, like, it's such a dumb bait, man. Like it just like level, it doesn't really do anything. Everybody's like, oh yo, I'm gonna start my own business with that, and like it doesn't do anything. They're just like printing money out of nothing, and they're just all it does is like create more inflation. It just
Right.
lowers the value of the dollar even more. I mean, it doesn't do. It's not gonna. It wouldn't do anything at all.
Like I think what Nate was saying like earlier, like people have this weird thing where like they look for a savior for some reason, and
Yeah.
like I don't know why I've never noticed it, but like, and now I look at politicians, like they have like that sort of savior, kind of like the like like in the 1920s or whatever, like there was like those grifters that would go to town and say like, oh, I have this elixir that will cure your ails or whatever. That's like when I see politicians, like they kind of give off that vibe to me now. And,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
did you see when that video where like Andrew Yang was like shooting like whipped cream into like his supporters like mouth, and like they're like getting on their knees like, oh, yeah, you too.
I didn't see that. It sounds creepy
Yeah,
though.
it was super creepy. And then like by the second person, the second guy, the I don't know who, like his handler, like some other guy's like, hey, like you gotta stop that. Like he's kind of like, he doesn't say it, but he just kind of like
Yeah.
stops Andrew Yang from doing what he was doing. But yeah, it's like that's like, to me, that's like an example of how like people are looking for like some kind of savior. Like they're willing to
Mhm.
like just lower themselves to that level where they get on their knees and like take whipped cream in their mouth for like a false idol.
Metaphorically, take whipped cream in the mouth, I guess.
Something that came to my mind when you were talking about false savior is it's a really hard video to find because YouTube
Yeah.
censorship, but
Mhm.
if you can, maybe I can find it and send it to you guys. I'll look for it, but
Mhm.
I really had to dig last time. But there's this video where someone made a compilation of Barack Obama, and it's called Barack Obama Fainting Lady.
Uh-huh.
And there's this compilation of like maybe 10 to 15 times where Barack would be, doing his speech, and then all of a sudden he would go, oh, hey, there's a lady, she's faint, get her some help. Oh, I got a water. And then he would take out a water and look like the savior every single time. He did the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
See that.
crazy. I mean, it's like, if people can't see that it's all just a big stage, it's just like right in your face, they're building this savior.
Yeah.
And once you start, recognizing the patterns, then you quickly realize like, okay, no one's like, you got all these people that are like, Jesus is going to come back and save us, especially the ones that are, having their faith in Jesus. And then you got all these people who are like, the aliens from this planet and that planet, they're going to come and save us. You just wait, the ship is almost here. And then you got all these people who are like, oh, the president's going to save us. And it's like everybody is just looking for some kind of exterior savior, not realizing that no one else can, be responsible for you other than you. And that's what people don't understand. And that's why most of the people see it's what's called cosmic abandonment. And that is people have mommy and daddy issues. We all have. I've had it. I've been working through it my whole life. Because the thing is, we've been brought up into this perpetual system that makes us dependent on it. And so we have the mommy state and the daddy government, and we're just constantly looking for one of them to come save us. And that's really the truth of it. So
yeah, crazy, man. I guess let's get into B. The leader is usually poorly adjusted. He may be hostile, extremely insecure, or paranoid. His personality disturbances lead him to establish a cult and persevere in its development. I can't say that I followed that I personally know anyone that is a cult leader, but just judging from people that are super, activist-y or SJW, they all have this weird insecurity about themselves. They're not sure about the things they personally know, so they kind of, I don't know, they have this authority figure, knows best, and I'm just going to represent. It feels like dealing with someone that works in HR or something like that. They're very they're selling you their company or their beliefs, and even though they don't know that much about it, they're going to sell it to you. It's this weird dehumanization that I get from them.
Well, I guess it goes back to what you're talking about, projection. It's they hate themselves so much, or that's where the insecure part also comes in. So they project that onto their victims, and somehow they're able to make themselves feel better.
Yeah.
Through projection.
Absolutely. I mean, it's you watch all these types of people who join these movements and groups, whether they're doing good or not. They definitely feel that that what they're doing is the right thing, and they want to really throw that in the face of the others. But see, the thing is when people's rights are being accosted, when their rights are being violated, then it's only natural that people have a self-defense mechanism to step in and do something. And people think that they're right and righteous in their action as a reaction to what they see. And the other thing is when you understand balkanization, when you understand divide and conquer, you really start to see that there's a bigger cult in the room that we're not really talking about here.
Yeah.
And it's all about getting us to have the us versus them mentality. And we are just perfect. We're perfect to be controlled in that way when we're in that mentality. And that's really what has to be understood when we're talking about these groups that you guys are bringing up, because they all have a similar theme. But see, the thing is, if we don't understand principles, see, that's the thing, is like if we're not getting to the core problem, then we're really not making any headway. We're not really making any progress.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, the way I look at it is, if we're always pointing the finger one way and not the other way, on all these different movements or different sides, and if we're not really like looking at both sides equally, then we do fall into an opposition. And even if we're right in our stance, we'll fall into this opposition. And that's why, like, for me, for what I have done with my life, is like, I didn't necessarily pull myself out of it. I just became knowledgeable as much as I could on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And it automatically lifted me out of that, controlled opposition, that paradigm.
Yeah.
And, I think that's where, like, because even sometimes I still have this us versus them ego, where I'm just like, fuck these guys, and, these pieces of shit, like, they're the way they think. And, I know that what I'm thinking is right, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, okay, well, is that really what's going to heal this whole situation? Is this really what's going to benefit any kind of growth? And it's not. And that's why so many people who are pointing fingers, or who are just enraged and just, have no reason or logic, that's why they're running around like a bunch of crazy people with their heads chopped off, and or chickens with their heads chopped
Yeah, I
off.
was gonna say that, chickens with no heads. Yeah. Yeah, it creates like a stalemate, like a stagnant stalemate, where we're just like just controlled. Like both sides are just being controlled. They're just there's no progress in that, like a stalemate.
Yeah, it feels like the concept of compromise has been lost. Like, everyone just wants to win. No one wants to compromise. It's
like
odd.
a war. Yeah. It's a war between black and white, a war between vaccinated and unvaccinated, and so on. And people, I don't, and it's the the war of us being mad at the people that just can't see it.
Do you think it's a lot of this is it's hard to sell or market like the idea of a compromise over like a we won kind of thing? That's like, when I think about the COVID thing, I don't think it's ever going to stop. It feels like one side has the power and they're not going to stop at all. And the other side, like, everyone else just wants to, like, I just want to compromise. Like, if you want to do it, fine, leave me alone.
Right. Me too.
It looks like it's not going to stop. And like, I'm never going to hear, like, on mainstream anything, people just, trying to search for some compromise. It's always like, we represent this side and we're going to be right and blah blah. Like, it feels like that's not going to end. And like, how the hell does, like, the concept of compromise, how can we make that a more marketable idea for just more people, just common people? Like, is it even possible?
It's a very, very, very good question. Because obviously we want to be peaceful about this, right? I don't want it to go to war, and I assume you guys don't want it to go to war.
Yeah.
But the problem is, the way I see it is, when the bully keeps pushing, eventually something bad's going to happen. And but here's the thing: these COVIDians, these people who want to go back to quote unquote normal, they are worshiping science at the altar. They are trapped in the cult of scientism. And because of this, because they put science at the top and not morality, because here's the thing, morality will always supersede science. That's actual science. When you really understand how the dynamics of morality work, you realize like, oh, okay, well, it's obvious that science is not above morality, because science is about knowledge, it's about observation, it's about studying and observing what truly is. And it's not about coercing someone's rights in nature. And people they're in see, here's the thing that I said last time when I was on your show is it's about fear. It's all fear.
Yeah.
It all stems from fear. So right now, those who are, in line with nature and don't really, just want to be left alone like you and I, we what we're doing is we're showing people that we just want to be we don't want to be part of this movement. We don't want to be part of this experiment. We don't want to be told what to do that coerces our body and our soul. And now we're being forced to make a decision whether, like, oh, do you want a job or do you want to be without a job? Because if you want a job, you're going to have to take the jab.
Yeah.
Right. And people are so quick to support that because they're in fear and all they can think about is themselves. And they're, because of what the scientists have said in the mainstream, they're so quick to just believe anything that they say and do anything that the government says because they worship authority. And they don't have any, they give themselves no time to listen to any of the scientists who've been censored, but they've been censored, so I can't really listen to them. But the thing is like, as long as people stay in this fear, they will do whatever it takes to have the life that they want, including not giving a shit if you and I have to be forced to take this vaccine, the jab, to be able to hopefully don't get censored because I just said that. But hopefully hopefully people just wake up and just snap out of it and realize like we're things are just going to get really, really bad if we get coerced, because there's too many people in this country who are not going to stand for this. They're not going to sit for this. They're going to get up and do something about it. And see, that's the other thing is like these other people or these people who support this forced inoculation, because that's what it is. They're waiting for a savior. They're waiting for us to stand up and do something because they don't care. They just do not care. And it really hurts. It really sucks. And it's just, they're lazy cowards. Let's just call them what they really are, because it's like, hey, we don't have much time left. And I'd rather just let them know like how I really feel, because they don't give a shit how bad things are going to get for people who don't want to take this experiment. You
just don't want to play along with what's going on.
Right.
Like when this whole thing started, I kind of had a feeling like they're probably going to push something, and I just don't want to be involved. Like I'm just going to fucking listen to podcasts and play video games. I don't want nothing to do with it. And it seems like it's at a point where like people are so forceful with just the topic of getting vaccinated. Like it's to a point where it's just annoying now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially the virtue signaling and
I never told anybody to get it or not to get it. Do what you ever think is right for yourself, but it's just the forcefulness and that's getting out of hand. And
Yeah, there are these people who are like, oh, I care so much about all these other
yeah,
people. Yet when it comes to people who don't want to take the jab or don't want to wear the mask because of, what it does to your health,
yeah,
they're like, I don't give a shit about you.
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
It's weird. Yeah, like I get like that kind of vibe. But, like, when you like go to a party and like people are playing like beer pong or whatever, and they want you to play along, and you're like, nah, I just want to drink and chat with my homies. Like it feels sort of like that, but like on a weird, like a global, forceful scale. It's really bizarre.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's just yeah, and it's what's called emotional mind control.
Hmm.
And emotional mind control is about, basically, if you've ever seen that monkey meme where it has the three monkeys, one covering the eyes and the other
Hmm.
with the mouth and then the ears, that's all about emotional mind control. And it's like people have seen the absolute, theater going on in this whole mess.
Yeah.
And they just close their mouth, close their ears, close their eyes. They want nothing to do with that.
Hmm.
And it's just like, okay, well, have you ever studied, the bloody history of
Yeah.
communism?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's like buying like the same pair of pants for like everybody. Like not everybody's gonna fit into the same pair
Yeah.
of fucking pants.
Yeah.
It's like
Not everyone wants skinny jeans. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
not everybody wants skinny jeans. They're like they don't like everybody is gonna have like it needs to be catered to like their specific because everybody has different medical conditions or
Mhm.
medical history. So not one vaccine or drug is gonna be the cure for everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody is unique. So it's like I don't understand how they can just push these 3, 4 vaccines on like onto like everybody.
Hmm.
But they've done like a really good job at just creating this propaganda on all these sort of like alternative drugs that they have out there that people have been getting censored on. Like
Hmm.
with the one drug first, like the one that they
The
yeah
hydroxy,
the
whatever.
hydroxychloroquine, they had like this propaganda piece where like this one guy like he took like what was it like
Was it
stuff like
fish tank cleaner? Was it that
yeah,
one?
fish tank cleaner,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
he died. Like, what the fuck? And now they're doing the same thing with like ivermectin, where like somebody, they're saying, oh yeah, it's like that's a horse dewormer when that is,
Didn't they
yeah, it's
smear
like the,
Joe Rogan because of that or
yeah, they're
something like
like
that?
so
Yeah.
Oh
like they're
yeah.
trying to smear it
Yep.
Yeah.
when it's that's like a drug that's been used for like a very very long time, and actually like I even went on the WHO website
Hmm.
and there's like a PDF that they have on there from I forget what year, where on page 6 they have ivermectin as one of 21 essential drugs of like a certain like 2016 I think,
Yeah.
and it's like, and meanwhile you have like all these propaganda artists like that one I forget her name, but it doesn't matter. But like she did like there's all these cartoonists making all these like horse dewormer like jokes. I'm like, the hell is like actually do
Yeah.
your research instead of like and the reason I get mad at them is because I know they're smart. Some of them, like I know don't
Hmm.
know any better, but like I know certain ones that I'm not gonna like mention, like they know better, but I know they're like just committed propagandists,
Yeah.
cartoonists, artists, and they're not that stupid.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But it's so annoying because then everybody else like looks up to them and they're
Mm.
like, oh yeah, that's like
Yeah.
the warmer, or like they eat the propaganda.
Yeah.
So that's
Speaking of propaganda, like I've been kind of curious for these last, I don't know, I've been like almost 2 years or whatever, but like has propaganda just gotten worse or is it just a lot more noticeable? I don't know. It's like now,
it's
Yeah.
like,
I think it's more noticeable. It's
Yeah.
like
yeah,
a lot more noticeable.
yeah, because like I like maybe 3 years I kind of like I didn't have cable, and now when I go to like someone's house and they have cable, they just have it on. It's just regular television. And I'm just picking up on so much propaganda, so much like do this. You need this for your sake. You need to do it. And I
Yeah,
just
you
wonder
just
if
see like a
it's
big spinning spiral
yeah,
going
yeah,
through their brains. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. It just makes me wonder, like, if it's always been this bad, or I don't know.
It well, the thing is, propaganda has become more sophisticated.
Mhm.
But it's always been there. There's been propaganda
Yeah,
since the beginning, I'm sure, but it's definitely it's coming from all sides so
Mhm.
much that we're so confused because we don't know where to look. We don't know who to trust. We don't know. And that, in some ways that's a good thing, because it's starting to make people realize that, authority is, really not going to get us anywhere. It's not going to save us.
yeah,
So people are starting to do their own homework to a degree. And I look at that as a positive thing, but it's just, the dark occult who manipulate what we see and create all these narratives, they're playing everything so close to the chest that they'll make an event where, you know, something good is happening, but really something bad is happening.
yeah,
And this is to really confuse people and keep people on their toes, keep people in fear, especially, that's the goal.
mhm,
And they are just masterminds at keeping people in these. I think there was something else I wanted to say, is like, when you think about cults, and you think about these techniques that I was talking about, which is isolation, conformity, repetition through indoctrination, and then traumatization.
those are actually in this pamphlet. Those
Yeah,
kind of things.
think about what we just went through
Yeah,
with the pandemic. It was this, like, isolate yourself, okay? Keep yourself in your house, away from people, and
Mhm.
only listen to us. See?
yeah,
They're okay. So we're all being led by a cult leader, right? And then what do? We got to conform by wearing a mask everywhere we go, and staying 6 feet away from people. And then you have the repetition, the
yeah,
indoctrination through repetition, which is constantly make people get in these lines,
yeah,
and you got to stay separate from each other, and constantly telling people by and then traumatizing them by repeating something over and over and over, and just sending all these scary messages into their mind that
yeah,
the cases are equal to deaths. That's really what
yeah,
I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And just really freaking people out. And then you got these poor little kids who don't know what's going on, and then there's no, like, hardly any kids are dying from whatever that flu thing was, and they're all forced to wear masks and shut off their airways. And it's just like, we really are being, we're all, whether we want to, admit to it or not, and whether it offends anyone that's listening or not, we're all part of this giant cult. And,
mhm,
talking about it like this is how we're getting out of it,
yeah,
it's because it's all about becoming conscious
Mhm.
and realizing, like, oh, I'm not here to serve this crap. I'm here to be free.
Yeah, I know.
yeah,
It's very psychological, because that counter that they had, like the death counter or like the case counter, is like, it just, like, people look at it, oh my God, more people getting
yeah,
COVID. And it's like, if they had the same thing, like, for I think who brought this up, Candace Owen brought this up, like, if they had like a counter for like deaths related to like car crash, related to like cars, like, people would never get into a car,
yeah, yeah,
because it's like, I forget how many cars, but it's like a lot of fatal car accidents every year. So I mean,
Yeah.
what's the difference? Like,
Yeah.
it's like if they put it right there, they put it inside that box, that or that little 3 by 5 inch box of your cell phone. Like,
Yeah.
you're scared, but if you don't know it exists, then like you don't really care.
Right.
We're being programmed to like be in fear.
It's something you mentioned the repetition part. Like earlier today, I had to call to I had some credit issue, and even on like in the as I was holding recording line, it mentions that like within the facility, the operator of the facility, like they're practicing social distancing and stuff like that. And like, why do I need to know this? I don't care.
they told you or what?
Like yeah, like the recording of like please hold blah blah blah, and they're like, oh by the way, our facility we practice social distancing. Like what
Oh
the
yeah,
fuck?
yeah.
Like it's weird.
It's yeah,
Let's see if we can
it's
go to the next.
bizarre. It is so bizarre, man. I mean, we are living in the biggest twilight zone this earth's ever seen.
Well,
Yeah.
it's like like that repetition really does like work because like if I don't know if you've ever been like in a supermarket and
Hmm.
like they have like a song playing and then like you're like, oh yeah, that's a cool song, I remember that song, and then like you go home and you kind of forget about the song, but for whatever reason like you're putting away the groceries and you start humming that song to yourself like yeah, you're like, why is that song in my head?
Yeah.
It's like the same thing with these like repeated phrases. Oh, stand 6 feet between each other.
Yeah.
Put on the mask. It's like that's what people keep hearing even after the fact that that voice is not there anymore.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
like
scary.
when you wake up enough to how just dismantled this whole world is, and I'm when I say that, I'm not trying to be negative, because I love this world. I think it's it's extremely beautiful, and I'm very thankful for this life. But man, let me tell you, when you wake up to the dark occult, when you wake up to mind control, when you wake up to slavery, when you wake up to just all the horrible things they're putting in our water and food, and all the things that they're feeding into our minds on a daily. And then, you walk into a place where everybody is just like zombies, and then there's a song on going, "'Cause I'm happy," and it's like people, it's to get people to sing this message to themselves while they're suffering. And it is such a backwards, messed up form of mind control. And I'm telling you, like people don't understand why these songs are everywhere. Like the top, 50, or not even 50, like top 25 songs you hear over and over and over and over and everywhere, because it's all about indoctrination through repetition, just constantly hearing it. Everywhere you go in the elevator, you hear it, you go in your workplace and hear it, you go to your grocery store and you hear it, you go in school, you hear it. It's like you can't escape it, and so you're forced into it. And it's oh man, it makes me so sick, and that's why I don't even want to go back out into the world. I can't take it. I'm too sensitive to it.
Yeah.
I guess it's go to the next one. Where are we? Maybe you're on D. Maybe frequently the leader is very bright, a high IQ individual. He's able to develop clever schemes that suck people in. He is also likely to abound in energy. He goes and never gives in. I'm not really sure if high IQ really cuts it. I think it's just more just they sound smart more than anything.
Right.
Yeah. Like you say, like there's this authority figure kind of thing, and people say shit like follow the science. It to me, even from the first time I heard that, I was always like, that sounds rather authoritarian of you to even say that. It's you saying there's people that have been picked by the upper echelons that have an opinion as to how you should live your life, and you should do as they say and just shut the fuck up about it. Yeah, I don't know how it's going to end.
I mean, the way that I see this is, okay, well, for one, you know, there are so many people with high IQs who, I mean, look at teachers at schools. They're talking with kids all the time. And I mean, obviously there's definitely indoctrination going on there. And a lot of them, but it really comes down to, once you're old enough to really reason, once you're, and unfortunately a lot of children up until around 21 are, they don't really know themselves and they don't know what's going on in the world. But the truth of it is, the people who follow the orders, the people who do whatever the authority figure tells them, well, you're essentially the one who's most responsible for whatever action you take. Now, obviously, you're fully responsible for whatever action you take. But what I'm saying is, like, okay, if a cult leader leads you to kill someone, obviously you're the most responsible, but the cult leader is also responsible to a degree, because obviously they're the mastermind behind this this action. And that's, I think a lot of people have trouble with that, especially when you apply it to every type of cult in the world. It's so important that we recognize this dynamic, because like I said in the beginning, it's about responsibility. And the cult leader, the cult leader has to be smart to a degree, or to a high enough degree. Otherwise he's not going to get anyone in his cult, in his group, in his gang. So I mean, it's that's kind of a given, but at the same time, not to like throw the baby out with the bathwater, just because, like, there's a lot of other good people out there who are high intelligence, who do have people come into their groups and do try to educate them on really important things. So
well, that's my primary concern, like the kids, because they're growing, like a lot of them like are growing into this, so this is all they know. So how is it that, like, they haven't, a lot of them have not even developed like reasoning, like Nate was saying, like they're like still like even teenagers and kids. And so what happens, like when they become adults? They just become vulnerable and susceptible to like manipulation, and they're like more likely to like follow into like cult-like tendencies. So that's like one thing I haven't figured out, but like there's something I want to do, like with kids, or something. Like, I mean, what is something that we can do as adults?
Maybe just
help the kids.
Teach them critical thinking. Probably is the only thing I could think of. That's step one.
Yeah, because that's the thing with specifically journalism, is that it's all propaganda, because they're not answering any question. And that's how you can notice propaganda right away, is that whenever you see like a story, they're never answering any question. They're just telling you this is what happened, but they're not giving you the what, how, when, or giving you like any history or background over anything. And that's the one thing I used to actually, this may seem like unconnected, but like that's the one thing that I liked about baseball, that I think that's maybe the reason why I was a little bit more critical, was because with baseball, it was always like thinking critically about like different plays, like thinking about, okay, well, if a left-hand pitcher goes against like a left-hand batter, it's gonna be like a bad situation. Like, you want to have like a left-hand pitcher to go up against a left-handed batter, because he can kind of like pitch away from him, and it's harder for like a left-handed batter to hit that. And there's like all these different types of situations where like you have to question the situation, and a lot of kids don't have that. So
well,
what do you guys think What else do you think?
Even reading this this book it's like reading the playbook, like of your team, right? Like if you want to know how the other team is going to do their plays, or how what's their strategy. If you can find their playbook, then you can be prepared for them. You can be more aware of what they're doing and what they're going to do. And that's really, like reading this book, or reading anything you can get your hands on about cults is going to help you. So, I think because of the way we've been indoctrinated and raised, we don't really, for one, we don't even really know about cults until later on in life. And then we're kind of taught like, oh, you shouldn't teach the kids anything about that because it's scary. But it's like, yeah, but if you don't turn them on to it, they might end up in one and do something really horrific. So it's, we have to be we have to take that authority to to our kids, to help them, like you said, have critical thought, and do your own research and think for yourself, and be prepared for these types of things in life, because it's life, and it's happening at all times, and we don't even really know it. But the more we become aware, the more prepared we are, and the more we understand how valuable our responsibility is.
Yeah, because it's definitely not like a lack of information, and actually the abundance of information is a problem, because these kids, even if they have like an abundance of information, they won't know how to actually apply it critically. Like just having all this information is just like, you need to have like a combination of like life experience with the information and think about it critically.
I think though, like with the abundance of information, there's a good part of it, but I think that what makes it bad is that it seems like people are being kind of intimidated to go off and venture for more information. It's like, I guess like I'm a I'm a music collector, you know what I mean, and I collect music from different genres and stuff like that. It's not stuff that plays on the radio, you know what I mean, and I kind of approach like this stuff in the same way. Like I get information from a bunch of things, but it feels like people are like intimidated to do that, and I'm not sure if that's maybe a conditioning thing or something, or I don't know, but
I think it's a matter of like accessibility, that information is there. Like say like you're into like horses or ducks, like that information is always going to be there. So why do you need to like dig even deeper? Like if like, oh, I'll find out later, like when I need to find out. So instead of like getting all that information, like, because like we were like little kids, you have to like, I've said this before, like you'd have to get on your bike and go to the library and then get like a library card and then look through all the books and then get some books, go back home, actually read the book, and then you're actually learning, you're acquiring information versus you're investing time into it, versus just like having like a phone that tells you like what you want to know when you have to know.
Yeah, you had to like put work into it, kind of thing.
So I think that's what the difference is, that stuff like would stick a lot better. Like it would stick it would stick like gum in our like mind. Like there's a lot of stuff that I learned as a little kid, like I still remember, just because you invested that time into it.
Yeah, that's a really, really important aspect to wake up to, is what we put our attention into. Because see, it's like this: do you have man's currency or material currency, which is spend time and pay attention, right? And then you have spiritual currency, which is man's currency is spend money and pay bills. sorry, I really like made I'm dyslexic, sorry. But you have so man's currency, spend money, pay bills, and then you have spiritual currency, which is spend time, pay attention. And where we put our how we take our time to go through information that is vital, something that is beneficial, something that's helping us understand who we are. That's a good place to start. That's a good place to be, because at least you're finding out something about yourself that is of value, and you're paying attention to what goes into your mind. You're paying attention to the information that goes into your mind, because your mind is eating information just like, when you're eating an apple, you're eating information.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be very careful of what we put into our mind, just like we've got to be careful what we put into our belly. And it's, the where we put our attention in, or what we put our attention into, is really what we truly care about. So as if we can find a way to overcome man's currency, always spending money and always paying bills. That's like, most of our lives, that's what we do. And that's where we invest all our time and attention. And it's like, well, if we can find a middle ground, at least, then we can, put spirituals over sensuals. So basically just putting our time and attention over our base pleasures and living, nihilistically. Because if we're living in a nihilistic mindset, then we're really not, then I look at it like, well, why even, want to know anything? Why even question anything? Because you're never really going to, figure this out. You're never really going to learn that you're not here to serve man. And, that's, I don't mean to sound preachy. It's just, it's like when you really invest your time wisely into trying to understand this structure that we're part of, and this, how the mind control works, you start to really appreciate your time. You really start to appreciate your attention. And when you start to appreciate, then you start to value. And when you start to value, you start to understand, like, what was I doing with my life? And, now I realize that what I was doing was, I was very confused, and I just didn't understand why this route was so important, why I had to learn these types of things. And because my life is depending on it. And, and I'm not saying like we're, any savior of the world, but we're definitely, we are the savior of ourselves. And, we have to, I mean, me personally, I take it very serious, because I value myself. I value life. I appreciate what this all is. And, and that's why I think time and attention and caring enough to look into these types of things is so vital.
Mm-hmm.
So
I guess it's gonna move on. This is the parts that brainwashing plays into cults. We can just kind of go through this list really quickly. It is planned to bring about certain desired results. Yeah, I mean, there's usually always like a promise, and when what's going on now, it's like when I talk to people about, like, let's say the COVID stuff, like I don't get a genuine, even a clue as to like what they want as far as like how this will end. Like, they don't know what they want. They don't know how it's going to end, but if we just continue to push, we'll get to some kind of ending. And like, but you have to know, and yeah, I don't like. I just have no idea what the results they expect is going to happen if things continue this way.
Yeah, well, they're like surrendering themselves completely like to government,
Hmm.
into the state. Just like, okay,
Yeah.
lead the way.
Well, yeah, and this really stems from an atheistic mindset where it's like, well, this is a one and done life. There is nothing after this. So I'm just gonna enjoy what it is. I'm not gonna fight for anything. I'm just gonna, I mean, they'll fight for little things like, little movements here and there, but they ultimately are in complete denial of something bigger than what they're seeing and what they understand, because they haven't done any research. They haven't figured out like, oh, there really is something very special here, and their life does continue after this. I mean, it's very evident. I mean, here's a prime example. When you understand that everything in the whole universe is in motion, even at the molecular level, everything is alive, everything is moving. There's nothing that is stopped in this universe. There's nothing that's actually still. Okay, so that means that when we pass, when our physical body comes to an end, it's not coming to a still, but the physical body is coming to an end in the sense of like, okay, well, it's not animated anymore. So therefore, life just continues. It doesn't stop anywhere. And to me, this is a very simple concept. And I think some people grasp it, but they don't want to accept, they have cognitive dissonance and don't want to accept like, oh, there really is something more here. And it's kind of a selfish worldview, because it's like, well, don't you want a great place for the children to grow up in?
Hmm.
Don't you care about them? But it's like, oh, well, it's this selfishness, like, oh, well, how do I know that once I die that, their life goes on?
Yeah.
And it's such a dangerous worldview, because it just means like, I'll just let the government and the people just do whatever they want and never stand up for what's right. And just completely just like, because really it's about this idea of survival of the fittest. It's the social Darwinistic worldview where it's like, the most ruthless gets to be on top, and whoever's dominating us, then they deserved it, and I don't give a shit. And it's like, well, as long as you have that mindset, you're really allowing evil to run amok. You're allowing evil to grow. And I know that's very unpopular, but it's true. And I'm not just saying it's only atheists, but because it's the other religions too, but in their own different ways. But it's like, it's just this a whole idea of just not caring and just letting, just having this belief in authority as their religion, because that's really what it is. But
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. Well, yeah, when you take away like God completely, and just like or like any higher being, like after this, like this kind of like it makes you feel like life is pointless. And I think it's very easy to just kind of like just be nihilistic. And well, I do know, like I do believe like in the after, like some kind of like afterlife, or the spiritual being, just because like I know somebody that's actually had like an like out of body experience, like a near death experience. So like I believe in that. And also like I don't know if this is true, but I read somewhere like a long time ago that when somebody goes to the other side, like their body actually uses like X amount of grams like from their body, like or ounces, like
Mhm.
they just like disappears from their body like as soon as they die. So I don't know if that's true,
Yeah, I
but I
think it's
thought it,
called corpuscles.
yeah, something like that. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. It's like, oh, it's like if that's true, it's, I definitely believe yeah, the afterlife or something, like the spirit world.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just
Yeah,
so
okay.
simple that to at least observe the fact that, do you see people dying around you? Yes. Does life go on after they die? Yes. Okay,
Mhm.
well that makes sense. All right. Well, does everything in the whole universe move? Well, look through a microscope. You can see everything's in motion. Everything. I mean, look in the day sky. It's always in motion. The earth is
Mhm.
always spinning. Where is it in the whole universe that there's a stillness other than the mind?
Mhm.
Because the mind is really the only place that you can find stillness, as far as I know. And it's like, how can you not see that life is a continuation? It's consciousness constantly expanding. you know um it 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 just boggles my mind that people kind of crap on that idea.
Mhm.
So
All right, let's skip ahead to just techniques of brainwashing because this is kind of the fun part of this. I guess number one is appealing to one's need for friendship. The leader usually poses as a friend, befriending the victims. This explains why so many runaway young people are found in cults. Um, yeah, I mean, just judging, just going based on like two people that are I know within my family that have gone like this sort of social justice route. Like they were always kind of outsider type people, and I've always been a kind of an outsider in my own right, but I never like needed friendship, but like I just found friends on my own. But they were always a little weirdly disconnected, and I can see that like whenever I see like the anti-racist camp video that I'm not sure if we'll have time to go over, but there is a sense of like we're all friends here, we all love each other. It's um yeah, so I can totally kind of see that just based on like what I've observed just growing up. um yeah, just go ahead.
um when I was in high school, I was approached by the military at least 5 times, and one of the guys just really was trying to get me to join. And I mean, he really was just so friendly and such a nice guy, and just really acted like my buddy. And I just would always tell him like, oh, I don't know, do I have to make a decision today? And he would say, oh yeah, man, you don't have to make a decision today, we'll be here for a while. And so I would just come back to school every other, well, every other day I would see him there. And
Mhm.
he would just always ask me about my life and just really just act like my friend. And then the one day that I came to school, and he was like, so what do you think, man? Like, he was just, and I was like, man, this guy's so cool, I really think like we're going to be friends. And then he's like, well, what do you think? You want to join? You want to try this out? And I was like, no, I'm sorry. And he just didn't. He's like, oh man, like I really like thought we had a cool thing, man. You're a cool guy. And I'm like, what? You're okay. So now just because I don't want to join your, you're the military, you're just gonna, not be cool with me anymore. And that's how it ended. It was just, he's just real cold and moved on to somebody else, because it's business to him, but it's the same mentality,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah. Let's see the next one. Special representative of God. The leader poses as a special representative of God, perhaps with special powers and a special commission from God. This gives him an almost unlimited authority and power. I'm not really sure how we can tie that in with like what's going on as far as COVID stuff, but when I see like people like how they treat like Dr. Fauci, for example, like there is like this almost he can do no wrong, just give him the power thing. And
Same Fauci.
yeah, and I just don't understand
Oh.
why put so much so much like love into a person just because they're on television. Yeah.
I mean, how could you not like Fauci? I mean, he knows everything about what there is to know about COVID
Yeah.
and the mask. I mean, he has it all figured out. And, he knows what's best for you. He knows what's best for me. And honestly, I just feel like I feel like everybody else is right about him. He really just, he should be worshipped and he is a god. So that's all I have to say about that.
All right, let's go to the next one. This is an interesting one. Next one is gradualism. The leader's influence and the purpose of brainwashing is gradual, is accomplished a little at a time. The person gets accustomed to his treatment, his beliefs, his way of life, so that is acceptable to him. It is, oh no, he just talks about the slow burn, this slow gradual process of it. And yeah, when I was in school, in college, it felt like kids were kind of like slowly but surely like being influenced by their surroundings, about like from professors, what to think. Like from day one to like the day they graduate, like they seemed like totally different people. They seemed very much like different people. But because of what they were like, just uh, so kind of beaten to death with like these beliefs or whatever like that. But no questioning. And, um, yeah, but even with this like COVID thing, like it felt like there was what 15 days to slow the spread or whatever, and it just hasn't stopped. And it's to the point where like a lot of the people, like I don't even kind of recognize them anymore. Like even talking to them, it just feels like I'm talking to a different person from like a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Um,
It's so messed up, man.
Yeah, I think part of it is the trauma
mhm,
from like all the COVID thing, because some people I've learned what is it like when you have to wash your hands a lot.
mhm,
They're like OCD and like they're like germaphobe, and so I can imagine like everybody that had that already, that ingrained in themselves like before COVID and before all this propaganda came into existence, like it just doubled and they became victims to that. And I think that's what happened. And actually that made me think about something right now. There was actually a person that I knew not very well that I used to work with like every now and then
mhm,
that passed away. Passed away, but she was really young and healthy, and I think it had nothing to do with COVID, and but I think it had something to do with just all the alarmism and just like all this, like the whole COVID thing, like just like it's like a psychological. It played like it was like a psychological factor, I think, into like what happened to her. But um, I'm trying to remember what was it. Because I didn't want to ask too many questions because I spoke with her boyfriend and it was just like really weird because I work with him one day and then I told him like he told me, hey, like do you know like I forget, like I told him like, well, I remember you. It's like you're so and so's boyfriend. And I'm like, oh, and he's like, well, she's no longer with us. And I'm like, well, what do you mean, like you guys broke up or something? And then it took him a while to like actually admit it. And well, it turns out that I guess she had like cardiac arrest, like during like one of the events she was working at. And I think it's just like the stress that piles up on people. Like some people that sort of like that mental strain is really easy. It takes a toll on some people, and I think that's part of the not also it goes along with like the manipulation that like some people like. That's why a lot of these people have changed. Like some people have, I think, unfortunately lost their lives. I can't prove it, but I'm just saying, I'm just speculating because she was so young, and to me it just I don't know, it baffles me. It's just like a sad story because I knew her not very well, but like I had worked with her like a few times.
Right.
So for that to just happen out of nowhere, it just didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
So wait, so you're saying that she died from COVID?
No, not from COVID. I think it had some. She died of cardiac arrest.
Oh, okay.
And so
I thought you
my
were
question, I'm not a doctor. Is like my question, like could stress like
Amplify.
amplify or trigger like a cardiac arrest? Because she was really healthy. She was like a beautiful young like 20-something-year-old female, and I don't know, like it just got me like I'm thinking maybe she's just like more vulnerable to like all the propaganda, like, and she just like stressed out and maybe that triggered it, and having to wear like a mask all the time.
Mhm.
It just because it just didn't make any sense, so I was trying to make sense of it. And that happened in 2020, so I'm thinking it, I don't know, she didn't look like unhealthy. There's like, so it just didn't make any sense. So, and that's like something that people are just not talking about as much.
I do think like just being super stressed out and I don't know,
Yeah.
fearful and paranoid, like that
Yeah.
can't be good for you.
Yeah,
To, like
because I
live
remember
in
like,
that state, you know.
yeah, because it seemed like she was one of those people that tended to maybe like stress out a lot about things. Because I remember like one of the events that I worked at, she was like sending me texts, oh, like the client wants you to go faster, you need to go faster. I'm like okay, well, I'm already drawn, like I'm already going like really fast. And I had to tell her afterwards, like, well, if a client in the future tells you that I need to speed up, I'm like, I'm always, this is what I can do within like an hour. So I can't go any faster. Just let the client know that this is how fast I can go. That way there's no, but I can't go any faster because I don't stress I usually, it's very hard for me to stress out. Like I know what I'm capable of and what I'm not capable of. So I don't stress over things that I have no control over.
Yeah, I try to avoid being as stressed out as much as I can. Like if I'm ever stressed out, like I'm just, things aren't right for me if I'm like stressed out. So I just try to avoid it as much as possible. So yeah, it might have, it might have triggered something, even mentally. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, the stress level this past year, obviously, I mean, anybody who's paying attention knows that everybody has been stressed out. So the whole world, the whole earth is going through stress. And so the stress on top of the other complications that we have, and then being in fear of this this thing going around and wiping people out here and there. It really takes a toll on you. And I've had this conversation so many times about, like, obviously no one ever talks about the people who died because of heart disease and cancer and diabetes and all that. No, those things don't even exist anymore. It's only, you died of COVID or you didn't die.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I could tell that people were so stressed because they lost their livelihood and they lost their, like they maybe they, because they're seeing what they're seeing on TV that just really, puts them in so much fear. And then they go out and drink, and then they get all these like horrible ideas, and that's why the suicide rates are sky high, like bigger than they've ever been. And it's like people just can't take it. And so when they do get this, flu, they can't handle it. Their stress level's too high. I'm not sure if I'm really going along with what you were saying, but I just bring that up because that is. And here's the other thing is, one thing I've noticed is when I'm talking to people that bring up like people that they know who've died from this flu, they are because their attention is on it so much, it's almost like they attract those deaths around them. It's like, oh, I man, guess what? I just heard someone else died of COVID. And then like, a week later it goes by, oh, I heard this so-and-so's friend died of COVID. And they really like to like beat that into my mind. And I'm just like, yeah, but like if I focused on all the people that are dying of heart attacks, I bet you I could come up with a whole bunch too.
Yeah. Well, that was my point. It's like, is stress good for your immune system? I asked that to everybody, like watching, and you guys, like, is stress good for your immune system?
I don't know. Isn't also, I remember one of the videos that got banned on YouTube was some doctor had a press conference, and he even mentioned something about like if you shut people in over time, like what will happen, like their actual immune systems will kind of weaken a little bit just from not being out in the open, just being put in. And that seems like a subject that I've not heard anyone. Yeah, I've not heard anyone bring that up ever since. And
especially the pro-vaxxers and the pro-maskers, they'll never bring that up.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like one of the things I remember, like people used to do, like if like your kids were sick or we were sick, they would be like, oh, you need to go out there like into the streets or like with your cousins and like play around with them, and that's how we would get better. We were like, our immune system would like get healthier just by like spreading it out. But now it's just like it's just being overly cautious now. It's like every 5 minutes, like like my niece and nephew, I think like they're trained to like wash their hands like every 5 minutes or something for every little thing. And I tell them, it's like, well, like if you play outside or your hands get dirty, like wash your hands, but don't let that make you afraid or don't get stressed out. Like just
it's natural.
It's natural. Like it's okay. If you sneeze on your hand, wash your hands, but you don't have to wash your hands for everything.
Right. The truth is we are so disconnected spiritually from nature that we will just look at bacteria like it's the devil, and it's like, and I see I've seen these signs down in California, like, kill bacteria, wash your hands and kill all the bacteria, make sure you kill all the bacteria. And it's like, yeah, but what bacteria are you, like you're making a blanket statement here. You should be saying like try to kill the bad bacteria, but make sure you don't kill the good bacteria, because obviously bacteria is like, that's what we're made of. And it's amazing how brainwashed we've become as a collective, to be completely against germs and bacteria, and just thinking that we don't have an immune system just because the God Fauci said so. And it's like, I mean, it's just, it really, it makes me question reality. It makes me question the whatever created all this, because how is it that people can be so mind controlled and not have and have their moral compass completely beat out of them? It just amazes me how easily conditioned we are.
Yeah.
It just blows my mind, because and it's just that stresses me out, because it's we're getting just walloped by a few people controlling the minds of the masses. And because those who are awake enough and see what's going on, it's very stressful for them. And it's I mean, we're really outnumbered, not to make it us versus them, but we are outnumbered by ignorance. And that's the truth.
Yeah. That's a weird realization I had when, like, I noticed like all the propaganda is just ramped up, but not only that I see it, but like that it's working really well, yeah, it's kind of disheartening to just see it so blatantly that like people just eat it up, and they don't want to change.
Yeah.
It's well, it's scary because like one day, like if we're so lucky to grow to like old age, there's gonna be like kids. I mean, the kids are going through this like right now. They're being indoctrinated and brainwashed. They're gonna be like little Hitlers, and we're just gonna be like, oh, I don't know. It's like I can't even imagine what it's gonna be like in 20, 30 years from now.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
if this continues for like a good 5 years, like imagine like all the kids from like middle school to high school, they're gonna be so just frail and weak. Like that can't be good.
Yeah, it reminds me, have you guys ever seen that movie with Christian Bale called Equilibrium?
A long time ago, I think I saw it.
Can't
Like,
think of it.
I can't remember like
It's
there's like a lot of fighting in the movie, right? I think or
yeah, it's like a dystopian world where Christian Bale is like a order follower, and he's like just murders all these people who are thinking or questioning authority. And then all of a sudden he has an awakening and realizes like, oh shit, I gotta do something about this. And then he, spoiler alert, he kind of takes down the whole system. And it's it's an allegorical movie, but it's so crazy the way that the children are in that movie, because the children are very they're basically, they have the children dominating the adults. And this is what happens in a lot of dystopian regimes, kind of like communist Russia. It's just, you get the young people to speak, kind of like what that little girl who is like the expert at climate change.
Oh, Greta.
Yeah, and it's like what you're doing is you're conditioning people to have their heartstrings pulled by this young individual who's being used. It's like, and it really bothers me like how people make fun of her because she's got like some kind of disorder or something, and she's being used as a puppet. And she doesn't know, she's a little girl. She doesn't know what she's saying or doing. And it's just like, it really sucks because people really just gravitate towards emotion more than they do facts and actual science. And but that's what that movie is about. It's like getting little kids to pull on the heartstrings and dominate the adults and basically be little tattletales. And it's bizarre, but it's a great movie. I highly recommend it, even though I gave away a lot, but it's so cool.
I guess let's go a little bit more and then we'll end it. This is another one that we kind of brought up a couple of times, is isolation. Brainwashing is often achieved when the victim is away from other influences. For example, a student may be away from home in a college environment and in a certain classroom. There, the professor talks the student into various kinds of beliefs. Yeah, I mean, there is a common theme that I've noticed with this, any kind of cult, and even when it's going on now, it's like just isolating people from any other influence and any other perspectives. Like when day one, like the suggested thing to people was to stay home. Like I knew that something was weird because like they're not going to be able to talk to anybody. They're just going to have their television or their phone to just keep them company. Like that, the error, the margin for manipulation, right, just right there, is really big and really worrisome. And and just to see it working, really trippy.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Think about how much they isolated us. I mean, it like you said, they made us stay in our home. We weren't allowed to get any sunlight. Some states. I mean, I still went outside. I didn't care, but like you weren't, like in California, you weren't allowed to go to the beach.
Yeah.
They had it all blocked off, and then they isolate you from your friends and family. They isolate you from air because you have to wear a mask. They isolate you from talking clearly, and you're just muffled. And they isolate you from all the doctors and biologists and scientists who were giving their knowledge, their information regarding this whole situation. And so they were just constantly being cut off from us. I mean, there was documentaries and so many videos that were debunking all of this stuff, and they were just getting deleted within 2 minutes. You can see real time. But that's isolation, and people don't realize this is a cult technique, and it's completely about getting you to just not have any kind of outside influences, so that way you accept the full doctrine of what the full agenda, the full narrative of what they're selling you. And man, the way that they did it was so sophisticated. And I mean, it was, when I saw it, I was resisting so hard because of what I know. And I felt like it's like that meme where like all these sheep or all these like buffalo or something are running over a cliff, and I'm like, I'm in the stampede with them, and I'm not I'm in that whole crowd. It's like I correlate it to, I'm in the whole city with all these people, and all these sheep are running over the cliff, and then I turn around because I know that there's a cliff ahead, and I could just feel this weight of them pulling me over the edge with them as they went over the side. And it was so draining because I gave everything I had to turn around and try to get out of that mess. And I still feel like I'm being pulled down, even more so now, because now it's just like, okay, we don't give a shit that we're going to have something, jabbed into us with all these chemicals that we don't know about. And it's like, and we don't care that it's going to ruin your life and all the other people who don't want it. And it's, but it's this total, I mean, it's just amazing how hard it was. I mean, for me, it wasn't so hard to find the information because I knew where to look and I knew how to look. But to see like, all these major places just censoring everything in front of everybody in the mainstream, it was just like, God, they do not know what to do. They don't know where to look, and they don't know who to believe other than what they can get their hands on, which is the easiest thing, which is their, whatever their phone tells them is available, which is their authority, and that's mainstream news.
Yeah, and it was weird for me when I shared with a couple people the video of like a doctor in a press conference as he talks about like the immune system and stuff like that. And I think within like 3 days after I shared it, like it was banned from YouTube. And I was trying to tell people like how fucked up that is. And like it's almost like they didn't care. And I was trying to tell them there's something just dangerous about some kind of authority trying to control information. But yet not a lot of people cared. They just, they, like we said, they're just in their cubby hole, And it was odd. It was odd.
How you're using that? Yeah. What's that movie? Something Instinct with what is it? It has, I think is it Dennis? No, it's not Dennis Hopper. It's the other guy who played Hannibal. What's his name?
Oh,
Anthony Hopkins.
Anthony Hopkins. Yeah. And he was in this movie called Instinct with where he lived with a whole bunch of apes out in the woods or gorillas, I think. And then he got separated from them for whatever reason. And then he found out, and he was really upset and he didn't want to talk to anybody anymore. And then, and he isolated himself. And then this guy comes in to interview him in some facility or whatever and says, "Hey, I want to free those gorillas. They're in a cage in this zoo." And Anthony is just like, no, I'm not interested. And then, he got him to be interested. And then they went to go free the gorillas out of the zoo. And Anthony just wanted to prove to this guy that these gorillas were not going to leave. So he opens the cage and they just sit there. The gorillas, he tells them, come on. And it's these gorillas he grew up with in the jungle. Mm-hmm. He's like, come on out of here. And they just looked at him like, nah, I'm good. I'm comfortable right here. Mm-hmm. And he was trying to free them. And that's really where people are at. Their will has been beaten out of them so much so that they're comfortable behind bars. They're comfortable in their box, and they just, and that's the whole mentality of, I just want to go back to normal, and it's just so frightening that people are that beat up that they've given up and just, allowed these dominators to win.
Yeah. I guess we're going to kind of start wrapping up soon, but like, do you think that there ever will be a back to normal? Because I don't think it will be.
No, I think what's going to happen needs to happen. And that's what needs to happen is people need to take back their freedom and really just stop looking to authority figures to tell them how to live and what to think. Because we've been doing that enough, and obviously all these people in power are super corrupt, and whether people believe that fully or not, they are in a position where they think that they get to decide what happens to us. And no, even if you're someone who is a little bit of a good person and you make some good changes in the world from that position, you're still not the boss. You're still not my authority, and you're not anyone else's authority. That's an illusion, and it's all based in ego. And I do believe in leadership, like I mean, come on, let's be honest. What's the last president that you've ever seen or known who was bringing any kind of enlightenment to this world? Exactly. I don't know any, honestly. I mean, we can go back, back to, the early guys, but we didn't get to experience them like we have these last, 4 or 5 presidents. But I don't see any enlightenment. All I see is progressively things are getting worse. And, I don't want to sit here and blame any one of them either, because really it's us. It's up to each one of us. And that's what we have to come to grips with.
What do you think, do you think some kind of a decentralization might be the future for this country, or maybe for the world? Just people,
to a degree. I think, if you're talking about currency, having a decentralized currency, right? That's what you're talking about.
Just in general.
Just in general. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in general. Yeah. I mean, I hope we do become more of a decentralized people, because I mean, that's going in the better direction. And, really just getting back to our morals and, our values, our principles, because without those, we don't have any foundation, and I'm not the one who it's not man who creates principles. It's just, it's what we find in nature through logic and reasoning. We start to recognize what these principles are, what values are, and what respect is. And, really just understanding that if we don't get back to that, then we're just going into total tyranny and total devastation of this planet. And but I do see a rise. I want to, I'm not here to tell you oh, I think the world's going to be great in 20 years and we're all going to be all singing kumbaya. But I do see a slight rise in people who are starting to care enough to at least talk about these things. That's a plus, but I don't really see too many people really going far enough in their research to really make a big change that we really want to see, because we're being we're being starved to death. And it's we're working these long hours and we're not able to put so much time into ourselves, and that's the way they want it. And it really is going to come down to people are going to resist this jab, and they're going to say, I'm not going to work for you, and I'm not going to support you, and I'm going to put some time into myself, even if I go become poor physically or financially. And eventually we're going to have to really become rich here in the mind if we're really going to see major good changes.
Yeah. What do you think,
Well,
David? What do you think?
Well, the one thing I was going to say in terms like of rights is that people have lost or forgotten that we don't get our rights from like the government.
Right.
And I think the reason is because like everywhere else except for the United States, like we were based on the Constitution, the reason why I have a little bit of hope in the United States is that we were granted the rights by our God-given rights to have all these individual rights that are in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. And people forget that. I think that's the distinction between this country and all the other countries is that everybody is so much more, the rest of the world is so more compliant because they think the rights are given to them from the government, from the state.
Right.
And we have to, it's like we were born with these rights and like nobody else can take them away by like us just giving them away. Like,
well, in people, I'm really glad that you brought that up because see, people are so quick to like, especially atheists, and even some Christians, like they don't understand that, or so-called Christians, they don't understand that, like when we speak, God, what's a God-given right? Most people don't understand what this really means is this is a science found in nature. It's not created by man. Man does not create rights. The man creates illusions and calls them rights in government. But when we understand, like, okay, for instance, we all have the right to speak our mind here on earth, okay, or in the whole universe. And so therefore there's number one, the first amendment, right? And we have these rights in nature. So it's not and why do we have these rights in nature? Well, because a right is an action that does not cause harm to other beings. Okay, so therefore that's why it's a God-given right, because it's a right that was created by the creator, not by us. It was discovered by us. But then you have the Second Amendment. Well, what's this about? Well, this is about the principle of self-defense. You are born with the inherent right to defend yourself. And therefore, like what, people are like, oh yeah, well, they're, the Second Amendment's about firearms. No, it's not. Yeah. It's not about firearms. It's about how are you going to defend yourself with whatever you have attached to your arms. That's why it's called arms. It's not firearms. It's not a gun. It's however you defend yourself. That's what people don't understand. That's an inherent right. And we all have this inherent right. It is nature given. It's God given, and we, the founders, made sure to put these rights right in the beginning of the Constitution. Why? To protect the rest of the rights that follow that. Now, obviously, a lot of those, a lot of the amendments that follow are very arbitrary and not aligned in nature. I'll make that argument, but at the very least, those two amendment, the First and Second Amendment, they are preserving our rights so that way we do not forget them, because they are there to protect us. And obviously I don't care if you burn the Constitution or not, we have those rights inherently in nature. So but if people, see, and like, God, don't get me started on this, man. I mean, people just, they're so quick to just want to throw all that away because, all the founders were, the forefathers, they were all slave owners. And obviously that's all a lie. That some of them were, but the point is like, it doesn't, like, people don't understand these rights are inherent regardless of who wrote them or who put them into this piece of paper that we swear on in this country. It's like people would rather throw away their rights because of who it was written by,
Exactly.
or who because of the color of their skin, or because of the time period, or because of what they did to people. It's like, yeah, but if you keep thinking that way, you're going to throw away all your rights that you have in this country, in this system that we're in, obviously. But obviously in nature, you have these rights regardless. And I just really wanted to, make sure that that's, understood. I mean, I could come on the show and go over all this like way more in depth, but the point is, I think that this is something that people are really overlooking, and if they're not careful, they're gonna throw it all away, and we don't know that we'll ever get something like that back, at least not in this lifetime, maybe. But people don't want to take the time and give attention to these things that matter. They just want to be like, oh, my feelings are hurt, and I just want to throw it all away because it hurts my feelings that you want to protect yourself with a firearm. It's like, okay, or you called me a bad name and I'm offended and it hurt my feelings, and therefore because I'm hurt, I want to take away your right to your speech. It's like, geez, man, whew, people are really on a high horse in that way.
Yeah, thank you for answering that, because that's like how, not exactly how I would answer it, but like that's like essentially what I've been trying to tell people, and I've been frustrated as well, like because I'll get the same responses too, in terms of like the Bill of Rights, where they're like, oh yeah, but did you know he was like a slave owner, or like he was racist and this and that, but like no, like these are things that are like in, like you say, like in nature. It's like you have the right to say what's on your mind. You have the right to bear arms, to like protect yourself, to defend yourself. Like what's bad about that?
Yeah, it's like people don't understand the whole little phrase, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. It's like, that's what it's about, man. I mean, you're the one who has the choice to walk away if someone's hurting your feelings, and you don't have the right to support people being thrown in jail just because because their speech hurt your feelings. It's like, that's not what this it's not what this country is about, but it's also just not what nature is about in general. And it's just, whew, God, don't get me started, man.
Well, that's why, like in I was gonna say real quick. Well, that's why, like in France, they're like beating up people for not wearing a mask, and in like Australia, that's why like there's all these lockdowns, and people can't even like. There's like the little teenagers that like tried to like sneak out in the middle of the night that got arrested and fined like $1,000 each. It's like, and the reason why that's like a lot easier to do over there is because they think that they get their rights from the government, from the state. That's how it is over there.
They don't have a constitution.
So over here we have a little bit of leverage, but that's like they're slowly like tearing down little by little.
Communism. It's
But,
communism. That's what communism always does. It always consumes all the rights from the people until there's nothing left. And that's it repeats itself all through history, and people love being on that side because they love being on the side of ignorance. So it's we live in a really wild time where like I'm not fighting for the Constitution at all. I'm not a constitutionalist, but I am fighting to preserve the what is true in nature.
Mhm.
And it's like, I mean, people just they love to make their opinion worth knowledge, and they have no idea what good they have in this country. I mean, because yeah, like I can sit here and say this country is pretty amazing because it has the First and Second Amendment. And not I don't think I think there might be like two other countries that have a First Amendment and maybe a Second Amendment. I can't remember off the top of my head, but the point is like this is what makes this country special, at least in comparison to other countries. And I'm not a us versus them kind of guy, but I definitely see like, oh, okay, well, there are some amendments that in reality they are worth fighting for just because of what they preserve. But I'm not going to die on the hill for that piece of paper.
Yeah.
And but all these other countries are looking at us like, well, what the media shows too, but it's like they're looking at us like, oh, look at these arrogant idiots in America. They're all about their guns and they're all about their speech. It's like, yeah, that's because their inherent nature. And like we have that, you have that right too, people over there on the other continents, you have that right. You have those rights in nature, and your countries have either taken those rights away or they just hid them from you for so long that you never knew you had them. And that's what dark occult types do. That's what the dark occultists do. They hide valuable knowledge that can set people free. So
Well
All right,
said.
I guess we're gonna end it there. I guess we could go the rest of it maybe in another time if you want to join us again.
For sure.
About cults. Yeah, this is fun. All right. I guess I'm Senor Filth, the Benevolent Asshole. Thanks to Nate Cap for coming back on. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel, and we'll see you guys another time.